Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax. Your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of five-time MLS Cup champion LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com, coming to you from definitely not Corner of the Galaxy Studios. We are in modified housing situations. Like they say, work from home, stay home. We're staying home. I'm recording from my house. Eric is recording from his house. And that sort of just blows all the fun introductions as well. But Eric, the Portuguese Hammer, is here with me, ready to talk to you, I guess, about some LA Galaxy-related news. We're certainly going to keep you updated on what the league is doing. We're certainly going to keep you updated on what the LA Galaxy are doing. And as news hopefully starts to filter down here in the next couple of weeks, that will mean that we will be able to get you ready for the season to restart. Obviously we feel like we're a long way from that right now, and I think everybody should sort of take that with a grain of salt. But the other thing we wanted to do, and as I sort of promised on the last show I did last Thursday, and I apologize, it's taken us a while to sort of put things together and put together our alternate plan here. But as we wanted to do, we wanted to take your mind away from some of this as well and just talk some LA Galaxy for you. And if that's LA Galaxy of the past, LA Galaxy of the future, or the present, we're going to do that as much as we possibly can. So let's talk to Eric, the Portuguese Hammer, in his quarantine house there as well. Hammer, how's it going, buddy?
It's going well. I'm recording from the Wiener Dog lair, yes. in my own garage. So I think we talked about this before we hit record. Crying babies, leaf blowers. It's all going to be fair game at this point. So bear with us. I'm happy to get to record. So that's the positive thing, is we do get to record a show and distract ourselves with some of the news that's going around. So that's the positive. But it's definitely been this week has been the longest year of my life. That's for sure.
Yeah, it has been. It's been some crazy time, but hey, we're back here. We're doing it. First off, let's start with T-shirts. I've been seeing T-shirts popping up everywhere. So you guys who purchased your top 50 T-shirts, you should have received them by now. And if not, it should be in the mail, or you should be getting them, today or tomorrow. But I imagine that most of the people by this time had received them as well, and we appreciate you doing that because it allowed us to put some more money into the studio that we're not using right now, which is always fun. But hey, we're doing that, and we're working on it, and that's fine. Everything is going great. But I've been seeing those T-shirts. Hammer, did you order one? I didn't even ask. I don't even know if you got one.
Not only am I a member, I'm also a purchaser. So yes, I did purchase my shirt.
Okay, so
so mine arrived. It arrived on time. I got it this week. Look forward to wearing it, during our quarantine time. I have been seeing a lot of the shirts pop up, all the different colors. So it's pretty cool to see people representing their city. My name's on the shirt. I finally made the cut. I may not get that Mike Araujo intro, but I got on a shirt. So I got that going for me. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see people getting their shirts regardless of the situation.
Yeah, I saw some pink ones in there. We have pink in the wind right now. Obviously some navy blues and some blacks are in there as well. So if you have a picture of a shirt, we'd love to see it. Hit us up on Instagram. You can hit us on Twitter at Galaxy Podcast for both of those, and we'll be happy to share those around. Something a little fun while everybody's sitting at home just chilling. I guess the other part of this is just Eric trying to update everybody on the league and what is happening with the league. It doesn't seem like a lot has happened since last Thursday, basically, whenever they had talked about the last Thursday show I recorded, that they talked about, postponing the league, and that was the big news from all that and trying to figure that out. But stuff has come in, and they've sort of looked at different days and trying to figure out what exactly they're doing. The two big things and the two, big announcements that are sort of coming through right now are the training moratorium, which we'll talk about here in a little bit more in depth. And of course, MLS delaying the league right now up to what seems like about May 10th. May 10th seems to be their target date right now. Everybody feels that that's pretty optimistic, I would say. Just sort of kicking that around and trying to figure out where everybody's at and their head is at that. May 10th still feels like it's way early in this whole thing. And I think that if you're looking at what happens in May for the LA Galaxy particularly, but, sort of as a league at whole there, Eric, is that the LA Galaxy had 7 games that they were going to play in May. So if you start kicking this can down the road just a little bit further, say it's not May 10th, say it's further than that, another 2 or 3 weeks, all of a sudden you're looking at a ton of games that the LA Galaxy would have to make up, but also a ton of games that MLS would have to make up. Now, whenever they put out their press release on extending this delay or this postponement all the way out until Sunday, May 10th, they also said that they're still planning on playing a full 34-game season. So, I mean, like I said, I feel like that's sort of teetering in the balance of whether or not the league actually returns on May 10th, and that seems way early. So I wouldn't be holding my breath, but we'll keep watching that. But if it comes out, they still want a 34-game season, Eric, and they're still saying that they think that they can get MLS Cup in. However, MLS Cup possibly in December again, which is nothing new. We only had 1 year of the new schedule there, Eric, so it wasn't like everybody was super used to it, but it was over all the years MLS Cup has been played in December, so they're sort of falling back on something that they're at least comfortable with.
Yeah, that's something that I think was important that they highlighted in their statement is we're still looking to evaluate all the options and playing MLS Cup in December, and then the key sentence there, as the league did prior to the 2019 season. So they're basically letting you know up front, hey, this isn't anything new. If this were to change this year, it's not going to be that different. May 10th does seem like an optimistic date. The Galaxy are scheduled to play the New York Red Bulls on Sunday, May 10th, so that would be their debut game back. But in between, they would have missed 9 games. So that means that, if you're extending the season until December, you still have to insert those 9 games that they missed sometime between early October and December. And that's even over a 2-month stretch. That's still a lot of games to squeeze in and include the playoffs, even though it is a single elimination format. So even with the optimistic return date of May 10th, it still seems like it's going to be difficult to get those full 34 games in. So I would not be surprised if they're looking at some alternatives of shortening the season if they do end up and playing MLS soccer in 2020 again.
Yeah, I mean that is the ultimate thing here. I know somebody kicked around just playing in conference games, right? So you'd only play people in the Western Conference. You play them home and away, and then basically you'd have MLS Cup at a neutral site. Which again, wasn't all that long ago. I think 2012 was the first time that they ever played an MLS Cup at the higher seed, or the person who had the best record in the regular season got to host MLS Cup. It happened to be the LA Galaxy, but the year before, 2011, that was not the case. 2011 was actually a neutral site Cup, but the LA Galaxy happened to get there, and they got there, and so they got to have the game on at the Home Depot Center there in 2011, and then the next year it went to the best regular season record would host between the two teams who were in the final, and the LA Galaxy were there, so that's why it was back-to-back MLS Cups in 2011 and 2012, at Home Depot Center and right there at the stadium. So going to a neutral site isn't a horrible idea either. The whole idea there, I believe, is to get it out of the cold again. It's also, if they're able to actually nail down a date for this, it is to secure a site and then make that the site for MLS Cup at that time and make sure that you can point everybody in that direction at that site. So those are just some of the plans that are sort of out there. The other part of all this is the training moratorium, and it's been extended, I believe, twice already, and they're basically going week by week, saying that the players are not allowed to train, they're not allowed to show up to the stadium, they're supposed to basically shelter in place in their home area. So that means that guys who are internationals, even if you want to point to somebody like Chicharito, who, a Mexican national, or Jonathan Dos Santos, a Mexican national, they're telling them right now that they're not allowed to go home. They're not allowed to go to Mexico. They have to stay in their home area, which is basically the LA area. Now, the LA area is vast and large, as we obviously say many, many, many times. I'm sure there are guys who are, all the way out in the desert somewhere, and I'm sure there's guys who are down by the beach, but they're supposed to just stay in that home area and continue to sort of, I guess, work on stuff at home, Eric. I mean, the toilet paper challenge can only go so far, but they're there.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing is when you talk a lot about remote work happening right now, my world, I think I've mentioned that I'm involved in education, so switching to a digital learning world that is new to a lot of people right now. I feel like I've been busier this week than I was, when I was actually working at my regular job. So it's just kind of interesting in that regard. But then you have these, soccer players. I don't know that they're essential employees that they could really work from home. It's kind of difficult. So it's interesting to see how this is going to pan out. Like you said, a lot of toilet paper challenges happening, going back and forth on social media and players working out on their own. I think that's something you're seeing a lot of because The plan is to come back on May 10th, but you can't just show up magically on May 10th and be playing. You do have to try to stay sharp, try to stay in shape in whatever way that looks. So it's just kind of an odd time right now to see how this all shakes out. And, if you're following players on social media, you're seeing how they're coping with it, but they're not really able to work from home. So the only thing that they really can do is try to stay in shape as best they can.
Yeah, which is going to be a difficult thing. The training moratorium is really going to be the flag that sort of goes up to tell you when we think MLS is actually going to be going back to work. Because in my mind, and this is just purely my opinion, you need 2 to 3 weeks of training again for these guys in order to get them back and sort of in shape. You need to have like another mini off-season camp, a preseason camp to get these guys back into shape and back working, because right now they're not allowed to work together. And I imagine that's going to stick around for quite some time, certainly here in California. And the other thing we have to understand is that, as this whole sort of thing plays out, it's going to be a wave probably in many different areas. So, while it's not necessarily a huge deal in Salt Lake right now, it's certainly a bigger deal here, in California, or it's a bigger deal up in Seattle and Washington. And so the wave may settle here in California before it goes, before it happens to settle all the way in Salt Lake or different areas. Again, it's going to build up and sort of affect different areas. The league is a national league, Eric. It's all the way across from, West Coast to East Coast. All of these teams now, you have to wait for every single team to be in the clear here before they can sort of get back and actually start playing. So to me, that's going to be the biggest hurdle. It's not just going to be to get through all of this stuff, on the West Coast and the East Coast, but what happens in the middle of the country as they're sort of, I believe, are going to lag behind the rest of everybody else. And so as that wave settles, on the West Coast, it's going to be picking up in other places. So California is certainly an indicator. The East Coast and New York City is certainly an indicator of when things are going to start to get better, but it's going to be the entire country needs to be better before they can really start playing this league again.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that as well, because their first game back, they're scheduled to play the New York Red Bulls. And you look at New York, and that's a state that's been hit the hardest when you look at our United States in which the virus is spreading. So if they're kind of the first on the map that the Galaxy are going to be seeing, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And what you're saying is absolutely right, because there is a ripple effect, and it reminds me of that saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So once that last, player, and we'll get into if players are being tested or how they're being identified, or if people are getting tested, it's 14-day minimum quarantine after you've been tested positive. So if a player is tested positive, you almost have to wait 14 days after that last player tested positive, and then that's the best case scenario. And then, like you said, you have to have a little mini, at least a week or a week and a half of training, or a little preseason, whatever you want to call it. And if you talked about the Galaxy having a little preseason rust, if they come back on May 10th, they play 6 days later at the Bank of California Stadium to take on LAFC. So that'd be an interesting 6-day stretch to welcome you back after being on hiatus for a few months.
Yeah, it's like I said, it just feels very, very optimistic at this point, and without the data and without the information, it's sort of tough to make these decisions and make these guesses. But that's what we're seeing now. At least as to my knowledge, and I pay fairly close attention, and certainly I haven't seen any press releases come from any teams or anybody from the league. No MLS players have tested positive yet. Now, that certainly could be because they're really not testing a whole bunch of people. It could also be that, MLS is not as popular as the NBA, Eric, where the NBA seems to be testing everybody.
I was going to say
MLS probably doesn't have access to those.
I was going to say, it seemed there for a while, like, we're hearing from our government the tests aren't available, they will be soon, and somehow every NBA team seemed to be able to test their whole roster and staff. So interesting how that works out. But I definitely would not think that MLS players and staff get to the top of that line, to the front of the line when it comes to getting tests available. So it's, we could have a little bit of fun here and poke fun at MLS. They were included in the press release when they said everything was suspended. So that's a celebration. Hey, they included us, but, we're definitely not going to climb the rankings when it comes to making sure our players are safe.
No. It's one of those. So again, just that's sort of where we stand right now. There's no real definite return for the league, nor would I expect there to be at this point. Everybody just has to sort of stay patient with this, and it's tough, man. I mean, talking to Kevin, which is, I do this stuff as a hobby, and I don't like to say hobby because I certainly take it seriously for what I do and how I cover, the LA Galaxy for everybody. But you look at somebody who, literally you could go through and mark like, oh, I have this on this date, and I have 6 games in this month, and I have all these things to cover, and I'm flying here, and I'm doing that, and now there's nothing. It's a weird hole going on. I don't know about everybody else, but I've been playing a lot more FIFA. And I've been watching those darn marble races on YouTube. Those are probably the 2 biggest things that I've been doing.
I was going to say, I think it's the same marble race that keeps making the rounds. I don't know that there's multiple marble races.
There are multiple marble races. Listen, I'm not going to claim to be like the marble race hipster, all right? But I was watching some marble races before all the sports disappeared, all right? I'm just, again, not the hipster on this, but I saw some of these. There's a guy who does like the Marble Olympics, all right? So you need to, if you're getting bored, Marble Olympics, just Google it. You'll find it.
And the one video that was going around, I mean, that track was impressive. So you could tell that it's definitely a thing. So I don't doubt you that there's a wealth of marble races in the bank, in the queue, if you need something to entertain yourself for the next few months.
This is where it's getting to the point where it's getting a little crazy for us too, Eric. I didn't even tell you this, but Corner of the Galaxy has a Twitch account all of a sudden.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
I was I'm like, what can we? We're trying to keep people entertained. We're trying to have some fun. So what can we do? I was thinking about possibly simulating some games on FIFA.
Yeah, you're reading my mind here.
Yeah, it's that way, which then you and I could look at and then provide some commentary to and talk about, and maybe that could be thrown up on our YouTube channel. So just sort of putting that out there. That might be something that possibly could do. There's a whole bunch. I'm not good enough at FIFA to be playing in these games.
Well, and neither am I, but I do have an update. Cosmo SC is, the LA Galaxy might not be available to play, but Cosmo SC, the LA Galaxy's premier fan FIFA Pro Club, is still playing. So they were able to play this week. Their second week was not as good as their debut week. So I'm here to report as a member of that team that the second week was not as successful, but it's still a great time. A lot of people joined. Speaking of Twitch, they joined the Twitch feed and watched the team play live stream and watch everyone play. So shout out to Scott, who's VGN Gamer 12, and then Kylo. He's at whoiskylo on Twitter, and he streams the games on Twitch as well. So Cosmo SC, if you're missing your LA Galaxy soccer, that's one way to get it.
All right, so there we go. Anyway, there's just some things we're trying to sort of figure out and maybe plug a void that is certainly there right now. Whenever you talk about the LA Galaxy and everything else that's sort of going on. So maybe that's something we'll do. Maybe it's not, but we'll certainly take a look at it and try to figure that out. The other thing that's sort of been fun to watch, though, is the players on social media. And Eric, you are a social media expert whenever it comes to following the players. And if you follow at Galaxy Pro Foul, you can certainly find a smattering of retweets or reposts from those players. So, I mean, what do you think the overall mood has been for most of the players?
Well, and the funny thing is, I'm a little bit lacking in my coverage here, because ever since the quarantine, I've got 2 kids at home and a wife working remotely, and I'm working remotely. So that time to repost the stories isn't there as much as it was pre-quarantine. So I haven't been on it like I have in the past, but I am sharing when I can. Again, the majority of the time, it's not that exciting. It's players posting pictures of themselves working out. It's videos of them doing a toilet paper challenge. I know Pipo Gonzalez today did like a Ask Me Anything where people were asking him questions, and that's essentially what's going down. So it's not the most exciting time. If you follow Galaxy players on social media, I kind of made that joke. Eric thought it was a great idea to make an account that follows LA Galaxy social media. And then now I follow, and it's just pictures of guys on their treadmill or guys juggling toilet paper. That's my life now. So it's kind of been an interesting week. So I'll continue to pump those out as I can, but I do apologize that I haven't been cranking it out like I have in previous weeks.
Well, I mean, everybody sort of had to adjust to what, quote unquote, the new normal here for a little while. Again, I don't get my fancy studio. I don't get, my fun cameras and my lights and all that fun stuff. And you know what? That's okay. Technically speaking, by the way, my real job that I have is technically an essential service. So we're still working full board. As a matter of fact, we got busier whenever all this happened.
I hear that.
I know you feel the same way. I know there's some people out there who probably lost their jobs, and so
that's unfortunate.
it's so up and down and just crazy right now. You could have never. It was difficult to predict. Excuse me, something like this. Difficult to predict something like this, and certainly difficult to adapt to something like this. So I know everybody's just doing the best they can, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And we'll try to provide a little entertainment for you. So, and speaking of that entertainment, though, Eric, the first sort of idea that we came to, and it happened pretty quickly whenever we were like, hey, what should we talk about? It's clearly going to be looking to the past of the LA Galaxy and talking about, some of the fun things and getting sort of quote unquote the banter up a little bit or having the discussion. And the first thing that sort of popped to our mind as I was sharing a chart with you, and you came up with this idea, but I was sharing a chart with you and I was like, hey, here's every LA Galaxy team is sort of defined by their points per game. And so basically you could say, well, which of those teams is the best team? Because you certainly can look at 1998, which had the best points per game total of any LA Galaxy team, but was also during the shootout era. And at 2.13 points per game and say, wow. But you can go back and say, holy geez, 2010 and 2011, not in the shootout era, but in back-to-back years, 1.97 points per game is really sort of the highlight there. 2001, 2002 had some great ones. So I threw all that information to you, and you said, let's have a bracket challenge. So that's what we have. You want to explain it to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So last season, we did a little COG madness, a little March Madness, given the NCAA tournament, although it's not happening this year. And so we did like a best stories of the LA Galaxy season. Now, obviously, we can't do that this year. So like you mentioned, we looked at the history, and using that chart, that points per game, we created our COG Madness 2020s. But we're now looking 16-team bracket, and we're going to decide what is the best LA Galaxy team ever. So, like you said, the number one seed going into it is the 1998 team at 2.13 points per game. And again, that is a little bit skewed because of the shootout era. There were no draws there, so it was, they got more points for the shootout wins in that case. So they're a little bit skewed, but that's what makes this fun, is because you look at the 1998 team and they're a number one seed, but then you look at, like a 2010, a 2011 team with identical point per game seasons, and you want to see how they're going to play out. Where are they going to meet? Are they going to end up in a final? Does the 1998 team, do they beat a 16 seed, which is the 2004 team, which is at 1.43 points per game? So, do you look at that 2004 roster and say, well, that roster, had they actually played that 1998 team, could have probably taken them out. So are we going to see some upsets, or is it going to be, kind of par for the course? Though you're going to see your 2011, your 2012, those teams rise to the top, maybe your 2002, and some of those other teams are going to get left behind. I will say, with the bracket that we created, those top 16 teams with points per game were pretty accurate. Regardless of where you think they fit within that 1 through 16, this is probably the correct 16 that are the best 16 Galaxy teams of all time. You're not going to have your 2017, which was a disaster, and some of those dark years, those 2007 Galaxy team was another one. It seems like every 10. Yep. Yeah. So some of those other teams are not going to be on there. So, and you also have all the eras represented. You have the 1996 team in there. You have the 2002 team. You have your dynasty era, your 2010 through 2014, even 2015 and 2016 making the cut. So a lot of eras are represented. All of the Galaxy's marquee players are represented. One concern that I had when we came up with this idea, as I said, I don't know if a Zlatan team is going to make the top 16 based on their points per game, but fortunately they were able to make a 14 seed. They were able to make it in. So, Zlatan's represented, Carlos Ruiz is represented, Kobe Jones, Mauricio Cienfuegos, all of the Galaxy legends. João Pedro there. Oh wait, no, he's not represented. But most of the LA Galaxy legends are represented, and so it'll be interesting to see. We'll be posting the rosters and having you see what they look like head to head, so you can make that decision on who you think, and then you'll be able to vote on cornerofthegalaxy.com on which team you think was the best. So we'll do a round of 16, a quarterfinals, a semifinals, and a finals, and that should give us at least a week of discussion of Galaxy talk on which was the best LA Galaxy team ever.
Well, it was funny because whenever we were talking about it, there were certain teams that you sit there. I mean, you're going to get to decide, and one of the things you get to decide is, should a team that didn't win an MLS Cup, could it ever be considered one of the top, even 4 or 5 teams the LA Galaxy have ever had? And the year that screams that is 2010. And so you sort of sit there and say 2010, how good was that? Everybody points to the 2011 team, which absolutely dominated from start to finish. And as Mike McGee said on Twitter, because MLS is putting out some of the classic games, some of the classic MLS games, and a lot of these are like high scoring, and a lot of these are fun. And somebody said, there aren't enough Galaxy games on this list to sort of entertain me. Mike McGee came out and said, yeah, he goes, that's because our defense was so good, we just shut teams down. It wasn't a classic. They never had a chance, and they didn't even know it. And that's when you're going into that 2010, 2011 teams, or the 2011 team was like, oh, you got a goal? Cool, you're going to win.
It's over.
It was, okay, that was fun. It was, oh, look, the Galaxy scored first. Well, this game's over. It's in the 7th minute. Yeah, it's over. Nobody's scoring. It's done. So you get to sort of judge these and sort of, I imagine that some of these first rounds are going to go pretty easily. Some ways you're gonna get to argue, but we're gonna post the rosters. Maybe we should even try to post like a 1 or 2 sentence. This is why you might want to vote for this team. This is why you might want to vote, for each of these years. So that way people can sort of understand and put that into context. Anyway, we'll put that up, cornerofthegalaxy.com. Just give us a chance to sort of actually format that and put that on there. Yeah,
the bracket has been created. So it's definitely ready to go. It's just a matter of how we're going to push that out and how we're going to get people to vote. We're working out the specifics, but it's something that I'm looking forward to. I'm curious to see what, LA Galaxy Nation, what the world out there, our LA Galaxy fans are going to think of it, and how they're going to rank it, and where people are going to vote. Yeah, because it's going to be interesting. Something, when you look at that 2004 versus 1998, that 1 versus 16, I think if you look at those rosters, it makes it interesting. It makes it interesting to see, yes, they have the most points per games, but if you were actually playing them against each other, and what's the criteria? Are people looking at it like that? Are they looking at how they dominated? You can have so much discussion on that, and that's why I think this is going to be a fun way to kind of fill the time during our quarantine.
The idea here is that for the podcast and for everything else is we're going to push things out as we can sort of get to them. Obviously, life a little bit crazy for some of us right now. Eric's got a full house. So, whenever I talk to him most of the time, his kids are ready to kill him. So, I would imagine could be an actual possibility.
I was going to say, don't count out the dogs.
Doesn't make a return. Yeah, and the dogs too, right?
You got the wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs. Yeah, we're all, we're only a weekend, but we're testing each other for sure.
I was going to say, I think the second night you sent me something, and I'm like, dude, it's day 1. All right, you just made it full 24 hours. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. You didn't realize
Good
you
times.
needed a 14,000 square foot house.
I love my wife. I love my kids.
And I also the fun sort of thing for me right now is I get to be home and be with the baby a little bit more, which is fun. So
that is a benefit.
He's a great. Yeah, it is a little bit of a benefit there. But like I said, we're still working. So most of the time I'm up in the office actually doing stuff. But we're gonna put out sort of stuff. I'm going to try to get with Kevin this next week, and sort of so that way we can get an idea of what's going on from him and get any insights. So that's still on the cards, and sort of now that we have, I think, what we consider our little studios set up here and understand how all that works, we should be able to put out a little bit more content for you. So I'll try to touch bases with Kevin, and then we'll try to keep Eric coming on here as much as possible. But for the most part, in person or live shows on YouTube, at least for the time being, are postponed, just like much of Major League Soccer. But we are going to keep podcasts coming for you, so that's going to be the goal. So a little bit shorter shows for sure. There's just not as much to talk about. I am trying to, and haven't had much success. I am trying to talk to some players. So if we can, we'll certainly get players to call in, and we can record those conversations and get you little interviews and find out what's sort of going through their minds as they're doing all this stuff as well. But
I was going to say this is your time to shine. I mean, the players have literally nothing else to do. You would think this would be a good time to get a hold of them and get them to talk.
You would think. Just well, I mean, you have to look at it from this. The business disruption that happened within the front office is gigantic. And so just trying to sort of work through, public relations and all the people who I know and worked with and want to make sure that they're safe as well, right? I mean, I'm sitting there going, hey, can I talk to this person? But at the same time, somebody's like, hey, I'm dealing with family stuff right now, the whole deal. Hey, I understand. That makes sense. We all were.
And when you...
Yeah.
When you look at a company like AEG, which owns the LA Galaxy, basically what they run their business on is public gatherings. You look at Coachella and Stagecoach. Those are all AEG properties. So this is something that we might see ripple effects down the line, where the Galaxy have had the fortune of being able to spend a lot of money and spend a lot of cash because they're owned by a company that is in a prosperous position. So this is something that's going to affect that company in a big way, and we'll see if it has ripple effects on the Galaxy team in the future as well.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, again, AEG owns concert venues around the world, and this is being affected around the world. They've sort of been insulated from a lot of stuff because they're so geographically spread out. But LA Galaxy, LA Kings not playing. All of the large concerts that they put together not happening. And that's across the world. So yeah, it's going to be a big story, and we're certainly going to see how that sort of plays out. But all this stuff is just sort of up for grabs. But we're going to try to keep you entertained and keep you talking as much as possible. All right, that's going to be what our goal is, and we'll keep you entertained. We'll figure out and dream up of different things that we can talk about, hopefully every week, and get back to you. And you know what that means, that hopefully you only hear us 5 or 6 more times before we actually get to start talking about a league returning and everything going. But for the time being, everybody needs to stay safe, which is the number one thing, and then hopefully stay sane as well. I know this is tough, but you can get outside, get a little fresh air, go for a little walk, that type of thing. Those things are all good. Just make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your family first, and we'll be here to try to keep you entertained as we hopefully march solidly and quickly and resolutely towards another MLS season. So anything else, Eric, you want to touch on before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I just also want to add, obviously stay safe and wash your hands and all that fun stuff, and stay home if you can. The way we're going to be able to fight this thing is if we flatten that curve and have minimal exposure with the outside world. So yes, do your shopping, get what you need, get your necessities, don't overbuy, don't try to hoard. Let's not put too much of a stress on it. But if you can, stay home and enjoy that time with your family. We made jokes about it earlier, but this is a little bit of a blessing in disguise, and kind of creating some introspection where you're able to look, and we may come at the other end of this looking at life a little bit differently. I know I'm definitely already, the way I view my family is it's different right now. And so find the appreciation where you can. Love your loved ones, or hug your loved ones while you can. I'll try to keep that social distance, but appreciate your loved ones. Maybe that's the better phrase here. And don't go out. Don't spread it if you can. Don't just think about protecting yourself. Think about the others that you can have an impact as well. So we will get through this. We'll have some fun along the way, but we look forward to the other side. But let's do our best to try to contain this as much as we can.
Yeah, that's going to be a key. If you need anything, I know it's kind of strange, but if you need anything, reach out to me. I will do whatever way I can to help out any of our listeners or point you in a direction. There are a bunch of people who listen. There are a bunch of people who we can reach out to if you are in need of something. So, let us know. We'll do our absolute best to help anybody through this time. This is one of those Galaxy family things. I've been fortunate enough to be covering this team for 12 seasons. I've been following this team since 2008. Eric, I know you've been following this team since 1996. So, doing all this stuff, you are part of a larger group, and while we can't quite be together right now, and certainly that's one of the things that's hurting the most, is the fact that I can't be at the stadium seeing you guys, talking to you at halftime, handing out stickers, taking pictures, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that fun stuff that we normally do. We can't do that. And so it's a little bit of I'm certainly, I wasn't taking it for granted, but I certainly look at it now and say, wow, that's really one of those things that I think we all live for. So we'll get back there and we'll do it. But let's be safe right now. But there's a large Galaxy family here who is certainly ready to help and do whatever we need to do. So if you need something, reach out, DM me on Twitter, and I'll do anything I can to try to help you. All right. Eric, anything else?
Good? I'll back you up on that. You mentioned it earlier, and I mentioned it. We're in prosperous positions where we're still able to work remotely and still be able to, keep things going. So, but we're here. We're a Galaxy family. We support each other. So, if you need to reach out, I'm available. You're available. We're here to get through this together. That's what it's all about. That's what the podcast community. I've had a lot of love thrown my way, since joining the fold, and I'm happy to return that to anyone who needs it. So I'm right there on the same page with you.
Yeah, and at least for the time being, because of just the technological restraints involved, probably no Sophie and probably no Larry Morgan on Twitter, not on Twitter for a little bit. So everybody there, I'm in contact with both of them. They're both fine.
I was going to say, Larry sent me a nice wiener dog video via text. Larry is, Larry brightens your day no matter where he is.
That he absolutely does. So Larry's doing just fine. We're keeping our eye on him, and Sophie's doing well as well. So we're everybody so far in the COG family is doing just fine. And Kevin doesn't shut up, so he's on social media. You know he's fine. So that's what we got right now. All right. If you're looking for, actually, I should Eric, why don't you tell people where they can find you? I know how to do this. This is a podcast. I've done this before.
I was going to say, we don't have the music. That's what's throwing it off. So we'll fix it in post. So you can find me on Twitter at GISHammer. You could also find me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL. We're still going for the quest for 1K, trying to get 1,000 followers on Instagram. So we'll be posting the bracket and all the teams there. So feel free to follow and interact with us and see how many toilet paper challenges I could repost. And then the last thing I wanted to plug is I'm now on TikTok. We're at the point where the quarantine has gone on and I'm getting bored, and I'm on TikTok. So follow me on TikTok at EVHammer. Might be a little treat waiting for you there.
No, don't follow. Boo. Please.
These are dark times.
God,
These are dark times.
God, no. I was going to say the Marco Polo app is very popular as well. So, hey, reach out there. You might be able to find me. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerthegalaxy.com where we do have the coronavirus tracker up there. You will find all the stuff from the league and all the stuff from the LA Galaxy that has been released and sort of where we think everything is headed with each press release that comes out and with each announcement that comes out. So please check that out, cornerthegalaxy.com. All right, I know it's not a normal show. I know it's a little bit shorter than the normal show, but these are sort of the new times that we live in there. So hopefully we gave you a little bit of a reprieve from everything, got you updated on all the stuff that's going on around the LA Galaxy and Major League Soccer, and got you ready for this bracket challenge for the best LA Galaxy team ever in the history of the franchise. So we'll be having that play out again. That'll come up on cornerthegalaxy.com as soon as we post it, and we'll hit you up on social media there. All right, for Eric the Portuguese Hammer, I'm Josh Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerthegalaxy.com. Have a safe and happy week, everybody. We will talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.